This is the World Satsanga on the 19th of September 2013. And so we've got, right now we've got Adriana, Chris, John, Joe, Marnie, Alan and Lucy, which is a good turnout tonight, which is good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us, which is excellent actually. I'd like to introduce Adriana actually. Adriana's been contacting me from Mexico over the past few months, and she's been doing a lot of her own light work as well, which is fantastic. And what I'd like to do, could you just introduce yourself for a few seconds, Adriana, to the group, and just to show what you've done in the past, and in terms of your own spiritual development, and how you got involved with the greater reality, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone. Hi guys. Well, I don't know, I guess from example from my parents, and then also I was not getting the answers that I needed, so reading. Then later, by the years I went to yoga. I had a very nice, very good teacher. And then again, looking again for answers. So God guided me here to you.
Okay.
I think that's all.
Short and sweet, which is fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, just there's a good group of individuals from actually most of the guys here from the States this side. Marnie would have been in, but I think she's not very well at the moment. From not Marnie, Mo from New Zealand. She's not very well at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. And they've also been having some really strange and very powerful weather over there. She lives on a large farm, and they've been having lots of trees affected by the wind. So by that I mean the trees have been falling down. It's like several, like tens of trees. So there's quite a lot of work going on over there right now to sort things out. So let's hope we don't get the same sort of abstract wind over here, or even in the States, that they've been having in New Zealand. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the agenda. We've just had the greetings and the stabilisation of Skype, and of course the introduction to Adriana. And thank you very much for giving us a quick summary of your spiritual progression and introduction. What I'm going to do first is go through a quick description of how, I say quick, 15 minutes actually, of how our true energetic self, which we can sometimes call the Godhead, or the higher self, or the oversoul, depending on how you look at it. It means all the same thing. How it incarnates. So there's a process there, how it incarnates. And then I want to have a quick talk about subincarnations and how they work, because I've started to notice a number of individuals, when I'm doing my readings, who I'm finding out are actually the subincarnations themselves, or they're shards of an aspect which is incarnate. Which is very interesting. It brings a whole new dynamic into understanding how we incarnate and what it means to us in terms of what we are and how we relate to our true energetic self, or our higher self, as it were. And then we'll have some questions and answers if anybody wants to ask any particular questions. And then at the end of my meditation, I'm going to ask you all to think of somebody, and it can be a family member, it can be somebody that you know, it can be even a group of individuals who particularly need healing. So just have a think about that whilst we go through the Satsanga, because I want to bring them into the circle and actually focus a lot of healing onto them so that they can move forward. And I know Chris has got somebody in mind. I think he's got his brother in mind. But if anybody else has got somebody in mind that specifically would benefit from healing, then you don't need to mention their names. Just keep them in mind when we go through the meditation. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is just go through something about how we do incarnate and the process of incarnation. Well, at the point of an entity's decision to incarnate, it has already been through the benefits of what it will gain through a particular incarnation by using what we refer to as the Akashic records. Now, the Akashic is basically a localized function of event space. That's that part of space which is beyond time, etc. Specific to the entities that fall under what I call the genre of energetic mankind. By that I mean those entities, those of us who have decided to incarnate on the earth using the human form as a vehicle to experience lower frequencies. And when this entity has chosen to incarnate, it has to decide what aspect of itself it will project into the vehicle of choice. So the vehicle of choice being chosen for a number of reasons, ranging from the potential longevity of the vehicle, the environment it will be exposed to, which includes the location, the family, the education, the locale, and the world role, plus the challenges it will be faced with as a consequence of being within this particular environment that we're part of, or additional to the experiential and subsequently evolutionary opportunities required. The aspect chosen may be one that has previously been created or separated out from the entity, or one that has yet to be created. All aspects are created and reabsorbed into the true energetic self. I'm calling it the entity sometimes, okay? After reincarnation has been finalised. And it is not specifically true that the same aspect of an entity, or in this instance the true energetic self, is used again. So what we are might not specifically be reused again in a future incarnation, although there is a potentially a large percentage of that used specifically within the environment of the earth. So an aspect can be comprised of exactly the same energies that were previously used. This is specifically useful when a similar or same experience is being sought after, or a karmic link is being worked out, for instance. They can be totally new and unused energies if a new experience is sought, or can be a hybrid of energies that were used to make previously employed aspects. So it could be basically a completely new aspect that's been created. It can be a hybrid of previous aspects that have been used based upon the energies and the experiences they've had. Or it can be an existing aspect, i.e. recollecting those energies that have experienced similar things and therefore reusing them again within the environment that it's being projected into, for instance, the Earth environment. So it's quite interesting that all of these things can also be affected by any potential karmic link that's there. So an aspect can be comprised of all those things we just talked about, but it's specifically important to use the same aspect if the same experience is being sought after, or a karmic link is being worked out, which is important there, because if there's some aspect of us or some part of our true self which is linked into the physical, i.e. the lower frequencies, attracted to lower frequencies, and has difficulty breaking away from them, this is actually karma. So that specific aspect of us needs to go back into the physical to work with the subject matter or whatever we've been experiencing to try and break that link up and remove the attraction to lower frequencies. Okay. So the aspect chosen or created is specific to the incarnation being sought after. It is specialized energy, but only for the duration of the incarnation. Okay? So when the incarnation and aspect is chosen or created, the entity then has to choose a suitable team of entities that will follow, lead and advise and organise the logistics of the incarnation and the complexity surrounding the interface requirements required of other incarnate aspects. That being, by the way, how the aspect will contact, communicate and experience the events required to be experienced in partnership with the other interfacing aspects and how they will benefit. That is, basically, how do we work with other aspects from other true energetic selves and how we work with them? What is the opportunity to work with them? What are we going to gain from that in terms of our evolutionary content? What will they gain from us as a part of that? So But behind us, there is a complicated network of helpers supporting each incarnate aspect, which includes a main guide. Okay, the main guide is that entity which remains disincarnate, clearly, and the main guide gives the incarnate aspect directions on what to experience, when to experience it, and how to experience the events that is required to be part of. So that makes it gives it the ability to maximise the quality of the events for the incarnate aspect and those interfacing aspects who also have their team of helpers and their own main guide working on their behalf. So the aspect is that part of the entity, or the true energetic self, that is incarnate. The entity itself, the true energetic self, does not incarnate from a holistic perspective, only from a partial perspective. So it's interesting that from a human condition here, we think that we are the incarnate part, that our soul is really what is incarnate. This is us, this is the whole thing, the higher self, etc. But actually, that's only a small part of what we truly are. And in reality, there's a much bigger part which remains disincarnate. So when an aspect is created or chosen to work within the incarnate, it is of a size that is maximised to work within the human body. That means the right amount of energy, the right amount of volume of energy, the weight of energy, if you want to call it that allows it to give it enough ability to motivate, to animate the human vehicle. So the human body is really a limiting factor, and the main reason for the need to create an aspect for the entity in the first place. So really, the aspect that is projected into the physical not only has to compensate as to we've worked around what it's going to do, what it's going to achieve, but also the type of body it's going into, and how it's going to work, and how long it's going to live, and that sort of stuff. So there are vehicles that are capable, by vehicles I mean human bodies, etc., and other vehicles around the physical universe that are capable of supporting larger aspects, but they are within the higher frequencies in general of the physical universe, and not those associated with the frequencies that the human body is currently resident within. That's the lower frequencies that the Earth is working with right now. However, the percentage increase in the size of the aspect incarnating in these vehicles is not that great in respect to the overall size of the energies that make up the entity itself. So one would think then, well, how does the aspect gain individuality if it's part of this huge other energetic entity, the true energetic self? But what happens, the individuality, what we think is us, occurs through frequential separation. That is, exposure to frequencies that are so low that the aspect is unable to communicate readily with the entity that is projected from. So when the aspect has been chosen or created with respect to the human body, specifically that one being used, it then needs to be integrated into it so that the human body can be animated. Don't forget that the human body is just a vehicle for experiencing the lower frequencies, specifically the multiverse, and as such certain functions are necessary for its continued usefulness. With the main guide and the helpers selected and briefed on the requirements of the incarnation, the entity can then go through the process of projection, that is, taking a part of itself away from itself and projecting it into the human form. Think of it in terms of having a large, shall I say, glob of treacle, and that treacle, and if you hold it up, the treacle on a spoon, if a drip comes off, then you have a glob of treacle coming down, and the link between the glob of treacle or the drip of treacle stays the same, but the link in between that and the larger part of treacle on a spoon gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and that's what happens in terms of the communication ability between that which is the projected aspect and that which stays in this incarnate. So the entity, the true entity itself, actively projects the aspect away from its main energy, so it can be used within the the selected human vehicle. Within the aspect, certain levels of information are introduced, such as experiences, knowledge, skills, and information from previous incarnations that may help in ensuring this incarnation is successful. These are all hidden within the energies of the aspect and allow the self-same knowledge and skills to be easily accessed when they are needed, so that they end up being memories, basically. An incarnate who is considered to be a quick learner with certain subjects is simply accessing those experiences, skills and associated knowledge gained in previous incarnations and applying them, or is applying them, to this incarnation as and when required. So, working back a little bit now, when the time is due for the conception of the new human body, the energies associated with the aspect are integrated with a set of energies that are compatible with the aspect and the human body. There are an interface between it and the aspect. There are 10 sets of frequencies associated with the interface between the aspect and the human body, and some of them are for the energetic perpetuation of the body, and others are for the integration of the aspect within the body. So the first three, this is from the highest down to the lowest frequencies, allow the incarnate aspect to maintain some form of communicative ability with the entity. They are a series of frequencies that allow the gradual reduction in communicative ability to be contained in some way that allows the same aspect of communication with the aspect in its incarnate state as it had in its separate but disincarnate condition. They can be considered to be like the compression software, for instance, used in a computer. For instance, when data is to be transmitted in its raw state, but it's too big, and therefore it's compressed in some way. The issue, though, is that the aspect is within full communication with the entity when it's at these levels of frequency, but the data is compressed far too low to be meaningful when the aspect is occupying the lower frequencies that are associated with the human body. So as the communication between that which is the true energetic cells and that which is projected into the human body is moved down the frequencies, the ability to communicate gets less and less and less. So we sort of lose bandwidth a lot, an awful lot. We go from, say, having 5 million different senses down to 5 at the gross physical, which is a massive change downwards. So if we think about the next 4 levels down, this is from, if the first 3 levels from the top were 10, 9 and 8, the next 4 would be 7, 6, 5 and 4. They are the spiritual physical. They are the interfacing energies within the human body that ensure that the incarnate aspect can animate the gross physical form through controlling the energies and frequencies that are not quite low enough to be gross physical, but also not quite high enough to be fully energetic. At this point, the aspect is connected with both the human body and the entity, but the communicative ability is massively reduced as a result of this. The last 3 frequencies associated with the human body are the gross physical. That's what we see and work with right now. So they form the basis for the construction of the gross physical and its growth to maturity. The 4 frequencies above that, which are 4, 5, 6 and 7, also perform this function, but are more to do with the connectivity with the aspect and the entity projecting the aspect. So its ability to animate the human body and transmit the detail of the events experienced within the incarnate condition of the entity itself. So this is quite interesting because it tells us that the energy system surrounding the lower 7, which is the middle 4 and the lower 3 frequencies associated with the human body, develops in tune with the growth of the gross physical part of the human body, modifying and improving the controllability of the body as it grows and reaches energetic maturity. Now, interestingly enough, energetic maturity is only achieved at or around the age of 7 years old. When the energetic maturity is reached, the incarnating aspect is fully integrated within the 7 lower frequencies of the human body. As a result, the lack of functionality resulting from the association with these lower frequencies, it loses communicative integrity with those energies associated with the first 3 frequencies, i.e. those in the levels 10, 9 and 8. and subsequently it loses full and robust communicative ability with the entity or the true energetic self itself. So as the incarnate aspect is directed and helps throughout its required and requested experiences, the detail behind these experiences are stored in a couple of ways. Firstly, the experiences are stored within the energies associated with the entity itself as a slow, continuous, let's call it a data stream, that moves up through the frequencies in a way that allows the detail to be maintained whilst still working within the confines of the drastically reduced functionality associated with low frequencies. You can sort of consider this as being like the old way of having a dial-up modem to surf the internet. You imagine how slow that was in the old days, when you've been used to a broadband link. And secondly, for instance, the experiences are also stored within the energies that are associated within the gross and spiritual physicality of the human body. Now, this creates a lower grade copy and ultimately a separately functioning personality, what we call the ego, what we think we are. So, it's quite a lot of work there and quite a lot of information there, but basically that tells us how we incarnate into the human vehicle and how we integrate with it, and how the lower frequencies within the human vehicle mean that there's basically two sets of personalities were created. First one stays there, which is that which is part of the entity or the true energetic self, and the second one is a transient one, a temporary one, which is based upon the lack of communicative ability between those energies which are projected into the physical body and the lack of bandwidth to be able to communicate properly with the true energetic self, therefore creating a separate personality that we call a conscious and subconscious mind. Any questions on that? Because it's quite a big subject there. Stunned silence. Excellent. So, in effect. Yeah, Marnie, carry on.
Guys, Marnie. Okay, I got a couple questions. Yeah, it's a lot. I guess my question has to go back to something you said about when we choose to incarnate, we choose what aspect we are going to use. So family, locality, education, challenges, etc.
Yep.
So as I'm a scientist, so I'm going to go there. What of this is predetermined versus I believe that we have control over the direction or our evolutionary content. So how much of this can we steer and guide versus it being steered or being guided before we even get here?
Initially, we've got total control over the ability to work with the human form to a certain extent. Certainly during the gestation period, we've got total control over the communication. But as the energies become more integrated and become more separated as a result of that, and the bandwidth disappears, we start to lose that level of ability to control it completely. So the level of predeterminism, if you want to call it that, the destiny-based stuff where we've decided what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and when we're going to do it and who we're going to do it with, starts to disappear from the visible plan, but becomes an integrated plan within us. If you want to use a metaphor, it becomes part of our DNA. We sort of know what we want to do when we want to do it. We have a plan that we have a feeling we need to do certain things. And so, although we get help from our guides and our helpers as well as this ingrained destiny-based, if you want to call it that, method of moving onwards, we also have the ability to do it in our own way, as it were. And this is the whole point of being in the physical, is to do it in a way that is only available to us whilst having a massively reduced functional capability. So we've actually have two ways of doing it, Marnie. We do it through our ingrained knowledge, that which we don't particularly understand, but we just know we've got to do something, we'll go in a certain way. And then the other side is where we're still getting little nudges in the right direction, little pieces of intuition, little pieces of gut feeling that are being given to us by our main guide and some of our helpers. And our helpers are also working in the background to make sure that we have the right individuals presented to us or put in front of us, or shall I say, put in our pathway at the right juncture in our physical existence, with the right type of communication, with the right skills, with the right subject matter and everything else, and that we will benefit from meeting these people, and that we meet them for the time we need to meet them, whether it's a couple of days, a couple of hours, a couple of years, or even decades in some cases. And that they also benefit from it as well, and they will have, and they will also have their own inbuilt sort of, intuition, as it were, what they've got to do, and their own guide and helpers will also be sort of trying to give them a nudge in the right direction, as it were, giving them gut feelings about how to move and where to move forwards, and who to meet and who to talk to and what to do, and what particular specialism they want to work with. So it's a bit of both actually, and it's very difficult to actually pin it down as to which bit is working at any point in time. The only thing I will tell you is that when you have a strong feeling about doing something, you will be, and it's been there for some time, that's part of what's ingrained in you. When you get a sudden feeling to do something else, or a sudden hunch, or a sudden piece of intuition to do something else, that's your guide and helpers making you move in a different direction. Does that answer the question?
Can I?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay.
But I just did.
That's okay, Dad.
This is Joe here, Marty. Hi. I just wanted to add something practical before Guy carries on. In terms of choice, pre-life choice, I was once playing with one of my grandsons who was 5, with whom I had never discussed spiritual things. And out of the blue, he said, "We choose our parents before we come."
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything to him in response. I just sort of mulled on it. And a few months later, I asked him if he remembered the process. And he remembered being in a room with some sort of a long table with all these different sets of parents to choose from. And so a few years later, I asked him about it again, and he had completely forgotten. So that supports a number of the things that Guy said.
Mm. Thank you, Joe. The problem is, as we get more associated with the physical, the lower frequencies, we start to lose our communicative ability. It's still there to a certain extent, but the personality that starts to grow, the ego, this conscious and subconscious mind, starts to become more associated with the human form. We start to actually, that becomes our predominant personality basically. And it's only later when we start to become, if we're lucky, more aware, more awake, more self-realized, that we're able to start reactivating this connection with our true self, and start to, shall I say, increase our bandwidth and get more information out of it. Okay. Did that answer your question, Joe and Marnie? I mean, Joe was given an example clearly there, which I'm grateful for. Thank you.
That was great, actually. Thank you. I mean, I definitely see what you're talking about.
Okay.
I have those. I have hunches, but also, I know exactly what you're saying, I guess.
Yeah.
And thank you, Joe. I love the example.
Yeah. The thing with scientists is, and I was married to a scientist, and my father-in-law was a scientist, and I'm being an engineer myself, I understand all of this. There is still something called the gut feeling, which is actually very recognised within science. Now, they won't pinpoint.
They won't admit it. You're absolutely right.
They won't. But most very successful scientists and professors work on gut instinct, and it's all to do with tapping into their higher self and the information that's there. But yeah, they won't admit it. They'll tell you it's all to do with their
absolutely.
They'll tell you it's all to do with their robust science, which is fantastic. Okay, anybody else got any questions on this before I move on to the next bit about sub-incarnations?
Yeah, guys. I was wondering, if we incarnate at the same time in several vehicles, can we incarnate then in other states, other events? What about feedbacks also? And then what happens if we meet like the soulmate or other person that we are Okay?
Yeah, I mean, the true energetic self can project up to 12 aspects of itself into anywhere within the multiverse, basically. But they tend to be used within the physical universe because that's where most of the evolutionary accelerative opportunities are. So, what is me? What is you? What is Marnie? What is John? Chris? Lily? Jane? Alan? Lucy? Joe? You know, they're all parts of a bigger aspect of what we truly are. Now, if we are lucky enough to meet another aspect of our true energetic self, then that is a true soulmate. That is, you know, part of a soul group. A soul group is all of the aspects that are projected out into somewhere within the multiverse that are from a single true energetic self. So if we meet one of those individuals, we not only do we meet another member of our soul group, we also meet one of our soulmates, of which there can be, clearly, if we're one of them, there can be 11. Now, leading on to the next subject of subincarnations, because I'm going to sort of retrack my steps a little bit here. If an aspect projects a shard out, and the shard is incarnate, then that shard is also, and that shard meets another shard, or it also meets another aspect from the same Trinity itself. That can also be a soulmate. So that's a little bit too deep at the moment for where we're going with this particular piece of information in this Satsanga. But does that answer your question, Adriana?
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Okay. If any of you have any questions that aren't part of the Satsanga, don't forget you can email me, and I'm quite happy to answer via emails as well. Although it's opportunity for people to listen to the Satsanga and get the information from the Satsanga by listening into the recording as well, of course. Now then, subincarnations. Subincarnations are something that I've literally in the last 12 months become aware of, and it came about, strangely enough, and Jane will relate to this. We were on a cruise with Dolores, and we were going around the Mediterranean doing various different things, and I think we stopped in Naples or somewhere. We disembarked the ship, and I was walking along some part of it with Anne, and I received an email on my phone, and there's a guy in Australia who asked about certain things about UFOs and abductions and things. And when I was tapping into the greater reality and the cosmos and the source to try and answer his question for him, I picked up that a lot of these abductions are based upon the primary aspect being projected into a primary incarnation, but at a higher frequency. But that aspect could, should it decide to, put the primary incarnate vehicle to one side, i.e. put it in stasis, and project itself further down the frequencies into another vehicle, so that it could have a subincarnation. So the whole aspect could subincarnate again into like a human body, for instance. Now that human body would be used by that aspect, and it would be enjoying the benefits of incarnating the lower frequencies. But not only that, it would be passing that information back to its primary vehicle, its primary incarnate vehicle. And not only that, if it's been agreed to incarnate and its incarnate peers understand what it's going to do, then they can also benefit from the work that it's doing within this lower frequency incarnation, its subincarnation. So an entity can, or should I say a true energetic self can, project part of itself into a physical vehicle at a higher frequency, let's say around the 10th frequency within the multiverse, which is still within the physical universe, and that entity may decide to say, okay, I want to stop now, I want to experience a lower frequency existence for a moment, I'm going to put this vehicle in stasis, and remove the aspect that's associated with it, but there is still some association there clearly, because it wouldn't be able to go back to it, and project itself down into another vehicle, into a low frequency vehicle, like a human body, or some other incarnate vehicle within the same frequencies that we consider the human vehicle exists within. So a subincarnation can be basically an opportunity to experience an incarnation within an incarnation. Now, what I've just described there is only specific to a full aspect moving out of a primary incarnation and going to a secondary incarnation. It doesn't take account of the fact that an aspect may decide to not do that. It may decide to continue that primary incarnation, but separate a part of itself out. And all of this is decided, by the way, whilst it's the primary aspect is still disincarnate. So it's all done prior to this first incarnation. It may decide to separate itself out and create a shard. Now, an aspect can create up to 12 shards. So you can get basically a primary incarnation with an aspect within that incarnation, creating up to 12 shards of itself, and all of these shards could be sub-incarnations of various different types. And so they can, but what I've understood about this is that this would only happen if the primary incarnation is in a higher frequency, not where we are right now in terms of the human levels, but up in the 9s, 10s, 11s and 12 frequencies associated with the physical universe. So they got much more communicative ability with their true energetic self. In fact, significantly more, to the point where they can communicate with it quite easily. But these entities can just project another part of itself as a complete shard out, or it can project a percentage out, so that the aspect that is in the primary incarnation can also totally experience a secondary or sub-incarnation, but be in control of both at the same time. Because in the method I've just explained to you, with the shard being separated out, that ends up being, like we are, a complete separate unit, doing its own thing in its own time, with its own experiences, with its own level of guidance and help and, shall I say, life plan, as it were, as well. Whereas the other one, if it's just a percentage of it that's projected out, without the shard-based separation, it can be a small percentage of the first aspect, and therefore, as a sub-incarnation, it's like us driving two cars at the same time. So there's three types of sub-incarnation there. The first one is when the aspect totally removes itself whilst still maintaining some level of association with the primary incarnate vehicle and incarnates in a lower frequency incarnate vehicle. The second one is when that aspect in a higher frequency in the primary incarnate vehicle decides to separate out part of itself and create sub-incarnations that are again totally independent and able to do things in parallel and in sympathy with the ability to be simultaneous with an incarnate ability, experiencing, learning and evolving in their own right. And the third one is when the aspect doesn't actually separate it out totally, it just sends a percentage of itself out and therefore experiences these two things together in parallel, where it would almost be like me looking when I'm driving my car or doing anything else and seeing one set of images from moving my car from one place to another, but also receiving another set of images from this other incarnation that is experiencing something else at the same time. So it's like experiencing two sets of data concurrently. It's a bit difficult to get one's head around this, and certainly it's for me, and I'm fairly sure for a lot of individuals in the spiritual scene, it's new news. So it'd be interesting to find out if you've got any questions on this and any thought processes or any worries about it. Any thoughts at all? Any questions? Chris asked a question. Is that shard 3D? Yeah, generally by 3D we mean that are they down in this level of frequency. And my information so far tells me that most shards are projected from a higher frequency down into what we call the 3D environment, the lower frequencies that our human body exists within. And that would be the same for the aspect that totally removes itself from the higher frequency vehicle to the lower frequency, and it would also be the same for the aspect that sends a percentage of itself out as well. Does that answer your question, Chris?
Hi.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, the shard I met 15 years ago, was that just a shard of me, a soulmate, a shard of me?
It's not, from my understanding, it's not particularly possible for us in this environment to send a shard out because we're too low a frequency, we're too far down. But I'll answer Lily's question in a moment. But from a higher, when we incarnate into a higher frequency vehicle, we can do it. So what you'll probably find is that although you met a shard of yourself, Chris, it's part of another aspect of your true energetic self that's been incarnated. So you've been met a soulmate, as it were, but another aspect of your true energetic self. Lily's asked the question: what is a shard? A shard is if we think of the aspect as being the soul that is projected from the true energetic self into the physical vehicle, then but at a higher frequency, much higher than the human body, then that aspect or that soul can separate out a part of itself and do another incarnation as a shard of itself, as a smaller part of itself. So it's almost like the true energetic self projects a part of itself out called an aspect or a soul, and the aspect does exactly the same thing into a lower frequency vehicle. So it's, we've got the true energetic self has the potential to, in a fully laden condition, project 12 aspects out into a higher frequency, and each of those aspects can project 12 shards of itself into completely separate but lower frequency vehicles. And so therefore the true energetic self could, in theory, experience 144 different lives concurrently. Does that help, Lily?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So Adriana has a question. What is a kind of replica?
Yes, thank you, guys.
Yeah. So, yes, Adriana's just asked, is it a kind of replica of what the source entity does? Yes, but to a much drastically reduced condition. It's almost like the source entity created billions of us, and we are sort of our true energetic cells would be aspects of the source entity, and therefore, when we recreate parts of ourselves further on down the frequencies, we project it further down. Imagine it like a management structure, where the chief executive officer would be the source entity, and then it projects out, 7 billion, for instance, smaller versions of itself, which our true energetic self would be, and then we can project up to 144 versions of ourselves through projecting out 12 aspects, and then each aspect doing 12 as well. The figure 12 came from the source, Joe. Joe's just asked a question: where did the figure 12 come from? Dolores or the source? It came from the source. Although it's interesting that the number 12 seems to be, thanks Adriana, it seems to be quite a common number, I found out. You look at the 12 apostles, for instance, and the 13th is Jesus. Well, the 12 source entities and the 13th will be the origin. There's a lot of this number 12 is quite a common number that's in use within the spiritual world, and it's spiritual environment in actual fact. So I'm keeping my eye on that number as well. It comes up everywhere. 12 is a absolutely very important number. It's one of these. How do I say it? It's one of these little pieces of information that are there to make us sit up and take notice and recognise what the greater reality is all about. Okay, I think Marnie's about to ask a question as well. It's a platonic solid as well, 12 solids. 12-sided, yes, well done, yeah. In fact, the 12-sided solid is also a very important piece of sacred geometry as well. Because the 12-sided one contains information on the 12 frequencies associated with the physical universe and how it works, which is great. Okay. I think Marnie's got another question or a response back. Whilst Marnie's asking this question, anybody got any... I'm still working on the 12 thing. Yes, I know what you mean. Anybody got any questions on this before we move on to meditation, because we're getting close to our time? No. Okay. Right. So, since we first started, we've now got Joe, Alan, Lucy, Marnie. I'll start again. We've got Adriana. I'll start from my left-hand side of my screen. We've got Adriana, Lily, Chris, John, Joe, Marnie, Jane, Alan and Lucy. And so what I want to do now is to use you all to do a healing meta-concert for somebody specific, or some individuals that are specific to you. So previously we've done some world work, but now I want you to sort of focus on somebody that you really think could benefit from a profound healing. It can be a family member, it can be a friend, it can be a group of individuals. It doesn't matter where they are, who they are, or whether they deserve it or not. It is, if you feel they need it, then we'll give it to them. Okay? So let's close our eyes and concentrate our closed eye vision on the area of the third eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And if you can make your back as straight as possible and your palms uppermost on your thighs, in between where the legs join the body and where the knees are. And as usual, just settle down and quieten down. And again, let's imagine that we're walking down a white corridor, and at the end of the white corridor there is a door. So you walk down the white corridor, you get to the door, and you open the door, and inside the door there's a large white room there. And in this white room there's 3 chairs. And initially, the centre chair is occupied by myself. I'm sitting in this centre chair. So I want you to walk into the room and just sit on one of the chairs. Sit on either the left chair or the right chair. And I want you to take my left hand with your right hand, or my right hand with your left hand. Doesn't matter how many people sit in each chair, that's not important because we'll separate out later. But just come down and sit by the side of me, choose either the left hand chair or the right hand chair, and hold my left hand with your right hand, or my right hand with your left hand. And in doing so, we link together through me. And when we're all in the room, I'm just going to let you all get a chance to come in and be part of this particular Satsanga at the moment, helping with this meditation. Okay. Good. And so now, the people on the left and the right start to move out and form a circle. So the circle combines me and Adriana and Lily and Chris and John and Joe and Marnie and Jane and Alan and Lucy. And we have this circle. In this circle we can contacting each other by our left hand being in contact with somebody's right hand and our right hand being in contact with somebody's left hand. Initially through my right or left hand. But I've moved you out into a circle now. A circle that is all together and working together. So in this circle now we have a space in the middle. Now in previous metta concerts I've moved into the centre and we've created a wheel, an area where there's part of yourselves projected into the centre and you will project yourself through your heart chakra to my heart chakra to the centre. But we're not going to do that this time. What we're going to do is allow that person or the people that you feel need to be healed to come into the centre themselves. So they are going to be the hub and we are going to be the spokes. So just imagine each of you, that person or people that you feel will benefit most from the healing, to be in the centre of this rim that we are, this circle that we are. That's individual or individuals. If there's more than one, just think of them as a group of one. Think of them as a group of one. And that's a one person would represent them all. And as we've done previously with me in the centre, we'll use our heart chakras, we'll expand our heart chakras. Our heart chakras have their point of origin in the centre of the sternum, which is that area in front of the body where the left hand and right hand parts of the front of the rib cage is joined together. And we extend some energy out from our heart chakra to the heart chakra of that person, or the person is representing a group of people in the centre of our circle, of our healing circle. And so now we're focusing on this individual or group or individual who's representing a group of individuals, and creating a centralized focus for all of our intention to heal that individual or individuals represented by or group of individuals represented by a single individual. We now have again the appearance of a wheel, the hub being the person healed, and ourselves around the outside, linked to that person, through an energy link between our heart chakra and their heart chakra. So now I want you to move your consciousness away from yourself on the outside of this wheel into the centre of the hub. And imagine that you're able to provide a link between the source and this individual. Imagine that you stretch your hands out, with one hand touching this individual and the other hand touching the source. And as a conduit, you bring in healing energy from the source to this individual or the individual who's representing a group of individuals. And so we all do this together in metta concert. And there's 9 of us. So it's 9 times 9 is the synergetic response to us working in metta concert together. 9 times 9 of us are working together, bringing healing energy in from the source to this individual who desperately needs to be healed. That's 81 people together doing the healing work. Imagine this energy coming from your fingertips from the source, from either your left hand or your right hand, moving across through the fingertips, past the wrists and the elbows and the shoulders, moving across the body to the shoulder and the elbows, to the wrists and the fingertips, those fingertips touching the person who needs to be healed. So we're there together, all of us in metta concert, healing those people that need to be healed the most in our lives. See them becoming stronger, more robust, more energized, younger, fitter, more capable, more able to be educated, more able to understand the workings of spirit and the greater reality as a result of the energies you're bringing across from the source. See any disease that's within them being eradicated. See any dysfunctions that's within them being eradicated. See any tumours within them being eradicated. See any genetically passed on dysfunctions within them being eradicated. Any aspects of them that were previously dysfunctional energetically, that were causing problems, have been removed. Their etheric template, their blueprint for physical existence has been reset, and they are now clean and totally functional in comparison to where they were. Energetically, they're like newborn babies. Nothing's affected them. Nothing's pre-programmed them. Nothing's contaminated them. They are now cured of any problems that they have. And so now move back towards your vehicle, removing the contacts from the source with either your left hand or your right hand, moving the other contact with the person who's being healed, again with either your left hand or your right hand, and move away from them as the hub, moving down that energetic link that links your heart chakra with their heart chakra, and move back into your own body. We are now a hub again, with the person being healed in the centre, and we are all linked around with people taking our right hand with their left hand and our left hand with their right hand, and the energies between our heart chakras forming the spokes of the wheel, going towards the centre of this wheel, this person in the centre of the wheel being the hub, being the person who wants to be or needs to be healed. And now with them being perfectly healed, contract that energy back into your heart chakra. And the circle breaks, and you start to move back to either my left hand side or my right hand side, the place that you initially chose to be on when you first came in the room. And now with your work done, you can let go of my right hand with your left hand, or my left hand with your right hand. Stand up and move out of the room, walking towards the door, opening the door, passing through the threshold, closing the door, walking back down that corridor, that white corridor. And now, with your work done, your most profound and selfless service to this individual, you can come back into your room of residence, wherever in the world you are, and open your eyes. I thank you very much for this profound piece of healing that you've given to whoever needed this healing within your life, whether they be friends or family or anybody else in the world. Thank you. Thank you, Marnie. Thank you for your response there. I know who you were sending healing to. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, Lily. Good. Anybody have any final questions before we dial off and then get ourselves ready for doing our daily work?
That was lovely, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That's interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Yes, thank you, Joe. That was interesting, Marnie. You started one and 7 others came into the hub. Well, there we go. Clearly, you thought of that one person and then others who were associated came in. Thank you for including those other people as well. That was an excellent piece of work. Thank you all. Okay, so we'll call this an end to the Satsanga this particular week. So I thank you all. I thank Adriana, I thank Lily, Chris, John, Joe, Marnie, Jane, Alan and Lucy, and I look forward to seeing you next time, which will be around about the 23rd of November. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. It's been a wonderful time to speak with you, and it's great this time we didn't have any problems with Skype. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you
all. See you later.
Did you see the aliens in Crete?